It's finally time for me to paint this Mk2 Escort, and I'm certainly no painter. Actually messed up a bit, to be honest. Beige 2K paint. Hard to like know what order to do it in. I've definitely messed this up. Run City. Biggest disaster. Reaction, yeah, it's pretty bad, like fish eyes. It's finally time for me to paint this Mk2 Escort that I like to call Heidi, and I'm certainly no painter, so it's an exciting but also an anxious day. Will I be able to make this look half decent? It's time to find out. I've been literally inundated with messages from you guys talking about which method I'm going to be using to paint this car. I mentioned in the last video that featured Heidi that I was undecided whether I should use 2-pack paint out of a proper spray gun or whether I should just be a Rattle-Can hero and get the 2K spray cans to do this job. I have now, of course, decided which route I'm going to take, and I'll reveal that in a minute. But as you can see, Heidi is all masked up and she's as ready as I feel I can get her to be painted. So let me briefly talk through what I've done since the last video that featured Heidi. I mentioned that essentially all I needed to do was to sand the panels to the final grade of sandpaper, which is 500 grit. And I managed to do that without any issues, but it did take way longer than I was expecting. I showed you in that other video that there was a few bits of filler work. There was a bit up here and a couple of bits that I was doing in the engine bay. So those bits have been sanded. They've been hit with some high wheel primer and smoothed off. But essentially the whole body shell and the panels, which you obviously can't see here, have been smoothed off to 500 grit, which I believe is smooth enough to put the paint on top of, but is also rough enough so that the paint will stick. I did actually end up going over the whole car with a grey scotch as well, and other than that, it's just been degrease thoroughly, and I've hit it with a tack rag, which is essentially a sticky rag that removes any last remaining bits of dust. Now this shell will be getting another quick degrease and another tack rag just before we put the paint on, but there was another couple of bits that I needed to do to get the car to where it is now. I've done a little bit of seam sealing. So in here, this side I actually messed up a bit, to be honest. It's not super smooth, but yeah, originally they have seam sealer along here, which I dug out when I bare metaled the car. Also in this boot shut area, a bit there, little bit there, and around this area and down here. I've tried to keep it relatively tidy, but I haven't fussed too much. They were never tidy when they were new anyway, and essentially this car is just going to be a toy, so it doesn't have to look perfect. I've also chucked some sealer in this seam here, and yeah, I've kept that really neat, to be honest. Maybe I should have left it a bit more messy just so that you can see you know, this defect a bit less, but it is what it is. There's sealer in there which should slow down any rust between those bits of metal, and yeah, it should look tidy once it's painted. Another couple of areas I need to give attention were this bit of the arch here and the sill. I wrongly remembered that this whole area is hidden by the screw-on arches that I've got for this car, but that's not the case. When I lined it up, it was clear that this little bit here, if I remember rightly, is still seen. So yeah, I made sure that that was nice and smooth. Around this side, that area was actually in quite bad shape. There was a bit of a dent somewhere, so chucked a bit of filler in there and smoothed it off. It is only a little bit that you see, so yeah, I'm sure that'll look absolutely fine. And another area that I hadn't really touched at all on this car since owning it is the seals. You can kind of see that they're solid, or so it seems from looking underneath at the lip and stuff. But yeah, I never even got round to sanding the primer off of the seals that was put on by a previous owner. So yeah, the other day when I was around it, I did that. There was a couple of areas that, you know, slight dents that I chucked filler in. I think that was around this side. But yeah, essentially they've just been hit with epoxy primer and the 1K high build out of a Rattle-Can, and then degreased and tack ragged along with the rest of the car. Oh, there is one other bit of sealer actually that I'm not even sure if these had originally. Let me know in the comments if you know. Yeah, it's this bit along here. I chucked a bit of sealer in there today. Tried to keep it really minimal. Don't want any lumpy sealer making the windscreen rubber not seal properly. But yeah, I think they had sealer in there originally. This car certainly has now. So yeah, other than smoothing everything off, degreasing everything and tack ragging and chucking a bit of seam sealer about, yeah, all I've had to do is mask the car up. Now I've back masked the boot area. So you put the tape on this way and then stick the paper to it. Done the same with the rear windscreen aperture. Annoyingly, it's coming away here, but yeah, I'm not gonna worry about it. The door shuts, I decided to leave this bit here exposed and similarly this bit here, because those bits are seen when the doors are shut. So if there is any mismatch between the beige paint that we put on the door shuts and the beige paint that I'm going to be putting on the outside, at least those bits that are visible when the doors are shut will be the same shade as the outside of the car. And that's why I've also keyed up this area as well to leave that exposed. This foam stuff here is soft edge tape. So in theory, this is going to mean that any areas where, you know, I'm masking against my old paint, there won't be a solid line, which should make it easier to sort of polish those areas to smooth it off. Anywhere where there is a sort of seam by design, I've just used normal tape. But yeah, anywhere where I need a soft edge, I've used this foam stuff. So yeah, hopefully any joints between the new paint and the old paint won't look too bad, but again, it's just a toy. I'm not that bothered. Some people may say that what I should have done was keyed up the whole of the door shuts and then just painted those whilst painting the exterior of the car. But I've got to draw the line somewhere. I don't want to end up repainting everything that we've already done. And it's a similar story in the engine bay. Some people would say, why didn't I just key up the whole of the bottom of the engine bay, seeing as I'm painting the top of it? But you've got to draw a line somewhere. And ultimately, if I decided to turn this thing into a toy before I got round to painting the door shuts and painting the engine bay, then these things wouldn't have been painted as well as they were, because this was going to be a standard-ish car. So yeah, as I say, you've got to draw a line somewhere, and none of this is going to bother me. As long as the outside looks shiny, looks half decent, at least until I drift it into a wall, then I'll be happy. It's worth noting that I've removed the front legs, just undone the bolts and jacked the car up slightly, just so that the front legs go down. It's going to mean that I don't get any beige paint on my freshly painted top mounts, and it also means that I can get paint on this edge. I really don't understand why people, when they paint these cars, just paint over the bolts and the top mounts. It's literally just 6 bolts and jacking the car up about a foot. So yeah, that was a simple way to make this area come out a bit better. But yeah, as I say, I think I am pretty much as ready as I'm gonna be to get the beige paint on this car, and I can't wait to get it done. So in this box here, I have the beige 2K paint and hardener, and I picked this paint up from my friends at BODICRAFT in Watford. Massive shout to the guys if you're watching this video. Any of you guys out there that are after any paint, equipment or materials, definitely go to BODICRAFT in Watford. I'll leave a link to their website in the description, and don't forget, whether you're ordering your stuff online from BODICRAFT or if you're going to go into their shop in Watford, use discount code MH10 to get 10% off of everything. For those of you that do go into the shop in person, it's worth noting that they've just moved into a brand new shop. It's only round the corner from the old shop. I'll put the address on screen now. So is this 2K and hardener in a tub, or have I gone for Rattle-Cans? I think that handle over there is a bit of a clue, but of course I'm painting this thing with Rattle-Cans, which I know most of you guys are going to disagree with, but it's no secret that I'm a bit of a Rattle-Can hero, and yeah, I'm sure it's going to come out looking good enough. I mean, all it needs to do really is look a bit better than my other model Mk2 Escort looked, and that car was painted matte blue with a roller. So yeah, I can't do any worse than that, surely. let's crack on. My beautiful girlfriend is going to be preparing the paint for me today, and because it's proper 2-pack paint, she needs to mix the hardener with the paint before I can use it. On the bottom of each can is a little cap, and attached to that cap is a little ring, which Kat is now threading on to the little pin on the bottom of the can. Then she can pull the pin out and twist it anti-clockwise 360 degrees, which allows the paint and the hardener to mix together inside the can. Now Kat can give the can a shake whilst I get my protective mask on. And once I'd wiped it with the tack rag, it was time to begin the paint job with the front panel. The aim of the first coat is to go super light, which will give a nice grippy coat for the following coats to stick to. I'm not really worrying about the coverage at this stage, but these 2-pack spray cans do cover really well, even with a dust coat.
Alright, filming on my phone because the GoPro keeps dying because of the heat.
I know how it feels. Heat's affecting me as well.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. I think I've gone a bit too heavy on my first coat, if I'm honest, but I think it should be all right. Yeah, other than that, good to see that it's beige. But yeah, planning to do another 2 coats. Just seems like a mission.
Hard to like know what order to do it in. I find myself getting carried away on one bit and then realising that I'd forgotten a bit that I'd just passed. Yeah, it's just down to lack of experience, I suppose. But yeah, I'll just keep going. Not sure how much of it I'm going to be able to film if my GoPro keeps turning off. I'm just going to get it done.
That's pulling the flies out with tweezers.
All right, job done, and I've definitely messed this up. Now, it's worth noting that I basically ended up giving most of this 2 coats because I was trying to push it with that second coat with regards to how much paint I was chucking on. I was really trying to chuck a load on that second coat, and yeah, that's where my issues have stemmed from. Now, the engine bay isn't looking too bad, to be honest. Can't really see any major runs. Did notice some reaction going on around here, obviously with whatever primer I'd used underneath, but yeah, for the most part, the engine bay actually looks pretty good. And so does the front panel. Now, the roof, I did give 3 coats because when a roof doesn't look shiny, it's just so noticeable. You know, it's sort of eye height when you're looking at a lowered car. And also the amount of flies and dust that were falling on the roof because it's a horizontal surface, I know I'm going to have to do a lot of polishing. So yeah, that got 3 coats, but I'll tell you what, I am well happy with how straight I seem to have got this roof. So yeah, that should look all right once I've done the endless amount of polishing that it needs. But my real problems are on the rear quarters. Run City. I hope that's coming across on camera. Definitely got a decent shine on it. Don't know if you can see that on the camera. I think the other side shows more. But yeah, loads of runs. Loads of runs. So yeah, loads of runs down there. So I achieved what I set out to with regards to putting enough paint on this job, but yeah, I've got way more runs than I was hoping. Just runs everywhere. Loads of runs. Loads over here. Loads. But yeah, you can really see the reflection on this side. So yeah, it's shiny, but there are loads of runs that I'm gonna have to deal with. Dear oh dear. But I'm confident that I'll be able to sort it out. It's just going to take endless amounts more labour. But there you go. Now, my beautiful girlfriend is patiently waiting in her car, and I'm going to need her to give me a hand to refit the front legs carefully without ruining the paint on the top mounts. And then we can get this thing back in the garage, and then I can get out of here. But I've got a confession to make, because the wings and the doors for this car I've actually already painted. So I'm going to chuck that footage in now. The first of the other panels to get done were the front wings. And my beautiful girlfriend was blocking the wind with a bit of cardboard. On a separate day, I did all 4 doors in the front garden. And a couple of days after we did the body shell, I did the boot lid and the slam panel. All right, so it's been 2.5 days since I initially painted the boot lid and the slam panel, and the boot lid has definitely been the biggest disaster of the whole paint job. We'll get to that in a minute. The slam panel is definitely looking respectable enough. I didn't go mad with the prep on this, to be honest, and there's going to be plenty to take your eye off of any defects. It'll have the chassis tags here and here, it'll have the bonnet pins and the bolts, so yeah, that is definitely good enough. Oh, I am going to have to cut away some of this to fit my big radiator. Should have probably done it before I painted it, but I want to cut away just enough so I can just blow it in afterwards. But yeah, onto the boot lid, which was an absolute disaster. When I painted it, it was fine, apart from some flies and some dust, just like all the other panels. But when I painted these two bits, I did it around lunchtime, and then we headed off to the other garage to put the doors and the front wings on the car. So where I did the painting of the boot lid out there, because there was less wind, needed to bring it in to the back garden so that we could then go out. And whilst I was doing that, I ended up messing up a couple of areas trying to pick this up without ruining the wet paint. So that was the first disaster. Wasn't a massive disaster, I just sprayed on some more paint in those areas because the paint was still wet. It all flowed out and that was absolutely fine. But when we got back home that day, Kat looked through the kitchen window and noticed that there was bird crap on the boot lid around here, and obviously bird poo is not good for paint, even if it's fully cured, let alone if it's been freshly applied. So I needed to get that off. The only problem was I didn't have any degreaser left. I used the very last bit of degreaser before painting these panels, so the only thing I had was thinners. So I hit the area with thinners, which inevitably took the paint off, and I had a primer coloured crater here. So yeah, I sort of keyed up all the paint around that crater and then chucked a load more beige paint in there, filled the crater with paint. Then I was able to get this boot lid perfectly flat. I propped it up on the bins so that the paint would stay in that crater, and yeah, it has now dried and filled that crater. So I'm quite confident that I'll be able to flat and polish this and it'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, that was the biggest disaster of the whole paint job. But just like all the other panels, this has got a load of dust in it, which will need to be polished out as well. But I'm thinking I probably won't bother taking this around to the other garage and fitting it to the car. This could be a good sort of candidate to see how well I can do with flattening and polishing in terms of saving the panel. So I'll probably crack on with polishing this in the rear garden here at some point soon. All right, so before I show you what Heidi looks like with her doors and front wings fitted, I've got a couple of things to mention. First of all, got to send a huge shout out and a thanks to my good friend Dale, who has helped me out yet again with some sandblasting. Now, the 4 rusty, crusty pedal boxes that I showed you recently have now been fully stripped. Dale blasted all 4 pedal boxes, all of the brake and clutch pedals, and then I've given all those bits a coat of the Kent Europe high build black primer, and 4 of the pedals have actually now been repainted satin black with some 1K satin black from my good friends at BODICRAFT. In other news, because I've decided to be a Rattle-Can hero with Heidi's paint job, I've actually released a Rattle-Can hero collection of merchandise, which you can check out on my website at marcushayesuk.com. We've got clothing, we've got mugs, we've got fridge magnets and stickers. There's actually 2 different variations on the Rattle-Can hero designs on the clothing, so head over to my website and check those out. Also, while we're talking about merchandise, I've now got 2 new colours of the MH decals. Someone ages ago asked me to get pink ones made, which I have finally done, and of course had to get some beige ones made up because yeah, gonna need to rock these on Heidi. So those bits are available now on my website at marcushayesuk.com, along with a whole load of other MH merch for you guys that want to support and represent the channel. Anyway, with all that being said, it's time for me to show you guys what Heidi now looks like painted beige with her front wings and her doors fitted. Check this out. well, there she is, way more complete than she's been for quite a while, and it is so cool to see it all beige after what seems like millions of hours of prep work. Still a load of work to do to correct some of the issues with this paint, which I'll show you up close in a minute. But yeah, I'm really chuffed with what I've been able to achieve. Still, of course, need to fit the boot lid and the bolt-on slam panel, which, as you know, are still in the garden. Still need to do a better job of painting the bonnet satin black before I can fit that as well. And yeah, once I actually get around to flattening and polishing all the defects out of this thing, then I can start putting together all the rest of the exterior bits, the lights, the stupid body kit. Still need to pick up the new rear wing from Gary Ball and fit that. But yeah, now that this is painted, I can really see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it really opens up the opportunity to get cracking on more with this project. I'm definitely noticing that the doors on the driver's side seem like they're not quite as shiny as the front wings, and not quite as shiny as the passenger side doors. Now, these two doors we brought round to here a few days before we brought the other two doors round here, and these were actually wrapped in bubble wrap, whereas I didn't have enough bubble wrap to wrap the others up when we came around here the other day. So I think maybe the bubble wrap has sort of lent on the paint, and yeah, I can sort of see a bit of an imprint of the bubble wrap, maybe where the paint wasn't, you know, perfectly dry. Or maybe some sort of residue has come off of the plastic of the bubble wrap, and yeah, it's gone onto the doors, and maybe that's why they're not quite as shiny. But none of it matters, because all these panels are going to be flatted with really fine wet and dry sandpaper before then getting polished back up. So I'm sure the whole car will be just as shiny, you know, all the panels will be just as shiny as each other once I do the polishing. But yeah, me and my beautiful girlfriend spent hours around here the other day just lining up the panels. They're not perfect. Maybe I'll tweak them a little bit more, but yeah, they're sort of roughly aligned. I definitely think I should have spent a bit more time sharpening these swage lines. Yeah, they seem a little bit blunt. Certain areas seem like there's too much filler in it still. Sort of round here, you know, maybe that needed flattened back a little bit better, which would, you know, as I say, sharpen the swage line. But, you know, with this set to be a bit of a toy, I just want to get the swage line roughly lined up, and yeah, that will do. So yeah, really happy, as I say, to see this thing all beige and starting to look like a car again. So let me take you around the car and just point out all the defects that I know about, all the runs, etc, so you can get an understanding of how much work I still need to do to this thing to try and make it look half decent. So we'll start in the engine bay, and of course the lower bit of the engine bay was masked off, so you know, this joint that they've done is going to need to be smoothed and polished to try and lose that a bit. My thoughts are that this area is probably going to have the oil catch can, which should take your eye off it a little bit. Obviously over here I actually painted all this and the battery tray, but the battery tray sort of goes there. Certain areas like this have got overspray of primer on, which I need to clean off with thinners, and then, you know, polish away any edge that I've got. These areas that I dusted paint on before, also down here, these gussets, I think this was the other shade out of the two that BODICRAFT gave me a sample of, so I might actually be able to key up these areas. I mean, that one, the engine will be in the way anyway, but some of these areas that I did touch up with this stuff, I might be able to key those areas up and just dust them in with one of the Rattle-Cans that I've still got left, which is the correct shade. And I reckon, yeah, that will make those bits blend in a bit better. There's a few bits like that inside the boot as well, but I'm not actually that bothered, so I might not even bother, but we'll see. My plans are to, when it comes to polishing and yeah, touching bits up, I want to try and do it all in one go, because those 2-pack cans, once you pull the pin, you need to use them realistically within a week. So it makes sense to compile all the bits that are going to need touching up and do them all in one go. So when that time comes, when I need to, you know, touch up bits that I might break through on when I polish, and, you know, any little touch up bits that I already know about, when I come to do them bits, then I'll decide whether I'm going to bother trying to blend in these touch ups that I did before with the correct shade. But anyway, moving on, I mentioned that there was a little bit of reaction going on over here. I think you can just about see that sort of dimples. Luckily, the dimples appear to be filled in with paint. So, you know, once I give that a little polish, which I may or may not even bother doing in the engine bay, to be honest, I'm sure that'll look absolutely fine. But, you know, with the bolt-on slam panel going to be sitting there, and with it just being an engine bay, yeah, I don't think that matters. I don't want to be scared to work on this car, you know, slam tools down on the inner wings and stuff. So I'm not actually that bothered about the engine bay, but it's cool that it does look half decent. The heater bubble came out pretty good. Obviously that got keyed up and just repainted. That was done before. But yeah, this area over here where I've done a bit of filler work to make the shape look a bit better, that looks fine. So yeah, the engine bay is presentable, so happy days. But yeah, I'll just walk around the car and show you any defects that I found. There's definitely loads of runs going on down here, although that will be covered with the front spoiler, so that doesn't really matter. Some runs over here, got to get the right angle to show you. Yeah, very subtle run there, so that'll easily flat out. This door looks relatively good, to be honest. Got a remnants of a dead fly there, and there's just dust in general, like you can see bits there. Yeah, dead fly there. Had loads of flies land in this job, and then they're all like trying to walk. So yeah, these are the bits that I'm just hoping when I do wet and dry them back, it's still beige there. Otherwise they'll be needed to be touched up before I then flat it back again and polish it. But you know, time will tell. But yeah, in general, it's just mainly just dust, flies, and yeah, that's another sort of trail that a fly has took. But yeah, in terms of major runs, I think I showed you these earlier in the video on the rear quarters. That is pretty bad. That is pretty bad, and equally down there is pretty bad, but I'm confident that I'll be able to sort them out. Yeah, the boot shut area came out okay, and the rear panel looks pretty good. Little bit of a run there. Other than that, yeah, pretty good. Some of this rear panel I probably am going to cut out further once I definitely make sure I've made my mind up about whether I'm going to extend the diffuser or not, but I think I am going to. So that's another area that's going to need a little blowing once I do cut out what I need to. But yeah, lots of runs here. Quite a big one there. And yeah, just runs in general. And then there was a load here as well, which I think you can see. Maybe that's a better angle. Yeah, quite a lot of runs. But yeah, this door, yeah, this is the door where I found reaction. This is probably the worst bit of reaction I've got on this job. And yeah, it's pretty bad, like fish eyes. And I'm really not sure whether I'm going to just be able to sand them back and polish them. So maybe this part of the door between the swage lines will need to be repainted, but again, I'll find out when I actually dive into flattening all the defects back. And then this door, yeah, it just looks a bit matte, as I mentioned. But yeah, there is a bit of a trail here where it looks like a fly has walked. And then onto this front wing. Now this has got an annoying run right here, which I think is going to be pretty difficult to try and sand out, you know, without breaking through and, you know, doing it in a way where I get the nice line there. So that might cause me issues, but, you know, we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's definitely nice and shiny. And then, yeah, around the front, bit of a run there. And then the front panel is actually looking pretty good, considering this wasn't even high build primered and smoothed. It was just, I put a load of epoxy on it and just tried to smooth that back. So I kind of expected this to not come out very shiny, but it's actually looking pretty good. But realistically, only this much of it's going to be seen once you've got the front lip on the bottom and the bumpers covering up most of it and the front number plate. So yeah, there she is. Oh, Let's have a quick look at the roof, because I'm pretty chuffed with how the roof's come out. It's had quite a lot of filler work, and a roof, it just shows defects really well. But so far, whenever I look at this roof, it looks really straight. But yeah, just a bit of dust in it and stuff to polish out. But yeah, happy days. So yeah, hopefully that's a decent close-up look at all the panels. But I think what I'm going to do now is talk through some numbers with you guys, because I'm sure some of you are going to be wondering how much this has actually cost me, seeing as painting a car with rattle cans isn't the most cost-effective way to do things. So I'll see you at home now. All right, so it's worth noting that I'm only going to be talking about the beige paint for the outside of Heidi. There's loads of other products that I've used before that, endless cans of epoxy primer on the bare metal, obviously used quite a few cans of the 1K high build primer before and after the 2K high build primer that I rollered on. So there's no way of knowing how much the whole paint job has cost me, but it is a considerable cost. But when you start doing things like this yourself, you kind of realise how pointless it is to pay a professional for a cheap paint job. You know, if you're not paying a considerable amount of thousands of pounds for someone to spray your car, they are cutting corners, and they're managing to do it cheap by not using the right procedures, or by using really cheap materials. Anyway, as I say, we're just talking about the rattle cans that I used for the outside of Heidi. Now, I purchased 25 cans of those 2-pack spray cans from my friends at BODICRAFT, and they would normally cost £625. They're £28, but if you buy 2 or more, they're £25. So £625 for those rattle cans. Now, with my MH discount, that brings it down to £562.50, which is still a big chunk of money, but you know, at least you get 10% off by using discount code MH10. Now, I actually only used 23 cans, so I've got a couple left. So that brings it down to £575, or with the MH discount, £517.50. So over £500 worth of paint has gone into painting Heidi's exterior panels. Now, that's a lot of paint in 25 or 23 cans of those 2K spray cans. But if you was to do it with a gun, I would predict that painting the whole of the outside, minus the bonnet, of course, because that's satin black, you would use about 2.5 litres of paint if you were doing it through a gun. And 2.5 litres of 2-pack paint from my friends at BODICRAFT in Watford would cost you £176.28, or with your MH10 discount, £158.65. So when you compare £158 to £517, there's a big difference. So look, if you've got access to a compressor and a spray gun, then that's the way to do things in reality, if you're looking to do things for the best value possible. But if you don't have access to a compressor, if you don't have power at your garage, and the only way that you're going to be able to paint your car yourself is by doing it with rattle cans, it's good to know that there are rattle cans out there that can get you a decent finish if you're willing to put the hours into the prep, which you'd have to do even if you was painting it with a spray gun anyway. And I've used a lot of rattle cans over the years, and nothing compares to the 2-pack spray cans from BODICRAFT in Watford. So yeah, that's the numbers. I know it's not the complete picture. Who knows what the paint job has cost in total with all the work that's gone into it. Yes, it's not the most cost-effective way. I was in a position where I could have accepted my good friend Lee Booth's offer to bring his compressor down and stuff, which would have been a lot of hassle for him, but he was very much willing to do that. My friend Dale, that I mentioned earlier in this video, said he was willing to come round and help us do it as well. So I didn't necessarily need to go down this route, but when it's all said and done, I'm very chuffed with what I've been able to achieve. But yeah, as you've already seen in this video, I've still got a lot of work to do with flattening and polishing before I can actually call this job finished. And yeah, I'll show you how that goes in a future video. But for now, I'm going to end this video here. Massive thanks, as always, to everyone who's tuned in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to keep up to date with all future uploads. Give the video a thumbs up to help me with the YouTube algorithm. Check the links in the description to follow and support me elsewhere on the internet. My email address will be down there as usual for anyone who wants to contact me. Don't forget to check out the new Rattle-Can Hero collection on my website at marcushayesuk.com. And for other car-themed clothing and products, check out petrolheadstyle.com. As always, got to send a huge thanks to my Patreons for your ongoing support. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.